Can't hear you.
Hello everyone. Good evening. Shovik this side. I see there are people who have joined in. Hi Ashish. Hi Kunal. A very good evening to you all. Let me know if you can hear me. Am I audible? I hope everyone here is joining from India.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. How have you been? How are you doing? So Khalid, please let me know when we can start. Are we waiting for someone to join? When is a good time to start? I see there are a few participants who have already joined. And let me know if, when we can take it up. Hi Shaikh.
Sovic sir, you can start.
Okay, great,
Yes, Sovic
great.
sir, you can start this.
Okay, so I encourage all the participants to be on mute. If anything is required, you can ask questions, putting yourself on unmute. So, so let's start. Let me tell something about myself. I am Shovik. I have having around 7 years of experience into CRM domain, out of which 6.5 years totally into Salesforce. I am a senior admin, senior developer, and slowly pushing myself to an MVP and architect kind of a role. So that brings me to talk to you about the course that I particularly take in Henry Harvin. That is a foundation course to learning Salesforce, and it will be up to pace with the administrator come app builder roles. So if I have to tell more about this, so there are various Salesforce kind of jobs, Salesforce kind of opportunities in the market. As you can see, if we progress down the slides, if we move on to the next slides, we will see that there are various kind of career roles that anyone can aspire depending on the experience that he or she is in, depending on their aspirations as well. So if you can take this slide text a little forward and jump into the curriculum of the course. Okay. So I guess you already are a little aware of why Salesforce. You must have heard something from the market. Why Salesforce? I don't know, but initially, as of now, as of in India, people do not teach Salesforce in their college curriculum, be it in their graduation degree, be it in their master's degree. So naturally, there is a very conventional question like why not learn traditional scripting languages? Why Salesforce for a better career? Basically, even before Salesforce, there were other applications like Siebel, like SAP. So these applications dominate the industry to a great extent. Salesforce is no different. Salesforce is currently the number one CRM. CRM, as in a sense, is customer relationship management, and Salesforce is a CRM tool, which is currently the number one CRM tool, and it has been number one CRM for the past 5 years, and it will continue to do so for a decade. Salesforce is way ahead when it comes to its competitors or its peers. Like there are Microsoft, there are Google, there is Zoho, who are competing with Salesforce to be as good a niche product as Salesforce. But somehow Salesforce keeps on re-innovating itself to stay every year on top of the game. It has one of the largest clients. It has clients including Netflix. It has clients including Coca-Cola. It has got partnership one of with what probably all the leading MNCs, all the leading giants. It has got gold partnership, platinum partnership with all the companies. So if you are in a company who is into a direct tie-up with Salesforce, you have a great opportunity to excel your career. Just give me a little minute. Yeah, sorry for the pause. So as I was saying, Salesforce is the number one CRM. So you can say that why learn Salesforce? That is the primary reason why you should learn Salesforce, because Salesforce is competing in a very large scale. Salesforce is acquiring great competitors. Salesforce is integrating itself with AWS. AWS is another niche thing. It's an Amazon Web Service platform. Basically, Salesforce is a software as a software as an application, and AWS is an infrastructure. So Salesforce is thinking ahead. Salesforce is pre-acquiring everything, pre-integrating things that can help boost client productivity. So in a whole, if you have to transition your career into some other technologies, if you want to start your career into some technology, Salesforce is a very good platform to start with, because currently the market is very good. We are in a phase where we need skilled Salesforce resources and people are not there. So currently the demand is more, supply is less. So many people are trying to transition into Salesforce from other conventional lines. Uh, but what is Salesforce? Like, why do we need Salesforce? As the presentation says, why do we need Salesforce? Because currently the industry or everything is data driven. Like, for example, Google has the greatest amount of data. Google search engines, Google, YouTube provides you the best of recommendations based on data. And data is very important. You need to manage your data properly, and Salesforce, being the number one CRM, does that to a great sophisticated level. So if companies are thinking to buy any CRM, be it a new business, then they're thinking of Salesforce. If companies are thinking of transitioning into anything, then they're thinking again into Salesforce. Previously, there was a large market of Siebel CRM, which has declined greatly. Like from the years of 2009, 2010, Siebel started degrading, and this entire concept of software in the cloud, like you do not need to install anything. You just, you don't even have to download an application. You just use the web browser, and your entire business runs there. So these sort of concepts has taken Salesforce to a great height. Though there are competitors who are trying to copy Salesforce, but Salesforce has the number one advantage. So if you can move to the next slide, I can elaborate further. So as I was saying, what is Salesforce? CRM is a broader kind of a management concept where you have to maintain customer relationships, like be it in the sales sector, be it in the service sector, be it in the insurance sector, be it in the automotive sector, be it anything, whatever the business is, you are going to do business with some sort of a people. It may be a man to man transaction, it may be a business to business transaction. So for any such sort of an activity, you have to track things, right? So there comes your utilization of a software, and Salesforce is a CRM software. So the concept is management, and Salesforce is that management tool which eases your cloud-based service. And I won't say it's highly affordable, because if you talk of Indian structure, Indian perspectives, then definitely Salesforce is not that affordable in a sense, because it's a per user license basis model. So when I say that it's about $75 per user per month, but it, as it sounds, is very costly for one user. Like, actually it's not. When large clients buy Salesforce, they take a lot of discounting from Salesforce itself, because they buy licenses for about 5 years at a stretch for about 1,000 users per month. So this $75 per month per user drops greatly. So in that sense also, Salesforce provide great discount to their loyal customers, loyal partners. So in that way, it becomes affordable as well. And yes, Salesforce increases your efficiency and profitability in a sense, because it comes with a standard set of rules, a standard set of things. But you can modify Salesforce largely to your own requirements. And that is where we as senior developers, senior admins, architects come into the picture, because every business will have their own niche things. Like, not every business is alike, right? So you may be working for a different business, you may be working for Netflix, and you have some particular database operations that needs to be driven mostly. I may be working for some bank or finance oriented system where I need to do with security more concernedly. So these sort of things vary, and that's where we need to jump in, because Salesforce provides a environment where the business can be run, but specific business needs need to be met by people like you and me. So we are those connecting parts of the Salesforce ecosystem. If we can move to the next slide, I will show you like what are the various aspects of CRM. Like initially I mentioned, right? Like CRM in a whole can be categorized into various broad sectors. Like Salesforce has their own sales cloud. Salesforce has their own marketing cloud. Salesforce has a service cloud. Here it shows as customer service. Recently, for about 5 or 6 years, they have their own finance cloud as well. Now they have an insurance cloud. You can analyze data. You can implement services like Swiggy, Zomato. For example, there is a thing called Field Service Cloud, where you can see your live agents in action. Basically, one of those services are utilized by Zomato, Swiggy, like the amount of ETA time, how much it will going to take, or whom to assign to your pickup order and everything. Those sort of field service tracking are also available into Salesforce. If there are businesses who uses field service lightning, field service cloud, you may have the opportunity to work on those particular technologies as well. And it's not limited. I have my own experience of working into health cloud, into community cloud, and depending on the licenses, Salesforce goes way deep. We have lots of things based on the client you are working with. Some people have too much confidentiality. If you're working into a health cloud, then there's too much compliance, too much confidentiality. You cannot keep data longer in the system. You have to there are European standards you have to maintain. So those are very particular cases. In generic, there is no industry which Salesforce has not penetrated. If you want some very particular solution, Salesforce will go into that. For example, if you do not want that Zomato or Uber Ola like feature, you do not want to actively track your agents, then you don't buy that license and your business will be a separate model. For example, if most businesses still conventionally use the sales cloud model of Salesforce. So what is a cloud basically? I will come to that discussion a little later, but just talking about this slide. Like for example, you are into manufacturing business and you want to keep track of all the sales processes. Then you can go into Salesforce and ask for their sales cloud license. If you are into more kind of a service sector domain, for example, you are a Vodafone customer service where people call you for any kind of a reason, then the cloud that Vodafone particularly uses is a Salesforce Service Cloud. So based on various cloud requirements, based on the requirement of the business, various licenses, various models are there that we need to do business with. One of the premier hotcakes currently is a marketing cloud. But before jumping into any particular cloud, because you as a developer or an admin cannot choose the cloud you are going to work with. Okay, that's totally on the business part. For example, if I work for Netflix as a Salesforce developer, then I am not someone who is working with field service lightning, right? Because Netflix do not tracks their active agents like a Swiggy or Zomato. So I will be working on a different model, and maybe I will never work on those functionalities of orchestration and things. And that depends. Every worker, every developer, every architect is not aware of the entire Salesforce ecosystem because it's so vast. Here in Henry Harvin, if you go to the next slide, we will talk about specific things that can be done through this CRM cycle, right? Like very generic kind of things, whatever you see, like for example, this email sort of integrations. This is a very generic feature. Suppose you have registered, like all these messages that keep on coming into our mobile phones or our emails is seamlessly integrated with Salesforce. Your data is flowing into this community. Like you even register for some lame lottery and your data is captured, and these data are exchanged these days. People actually pay real money for just your data so that you can be one of their businesses, any businesses. And those are called leads, actually leads in Salesforce or be in any other CRM system. So from that perspective, once you are a lead, then your lead will be seamlessly integrated into emails. Like they will send you reminders, they will send you discounts on your birthdays. If you have inquired for a product and there is a price drop, they will send you emails. All those things can be configured by Salesforce. Like these examples in Amazon sites, you see like some product is not available and you say notify me. Sorry, these things can easily be configured by Salesforce systems as well. Then you have the entire concept of call logs. You can set proper call details. You can basically have a very integrated and enlarged concept of logging calls where you can share any standard documents. It helps a lot in your email marketing. You get a 360 picture of what is happening with the business. So here, maybe you are not a developer. I'm talking about the end user perspective of Salesforce. You are an end user to Salesforce. You use Salesforce for your day-to-day activity, and you have to track a customer who is supposed trying to buy a car, and you can see all his data, all her data in one particular page, and all the transactions that have happened, and it integrates. Most importantly, you do not have to manually do things. If you have set up proper integrations, it will integrate things. It will obviously send out alerts to him, and it will also make conversations much easier for the end user perspective. The done are those days where people used to take sticky notes and MS Excel and things like that. And most importantly, these businesses run from your mobile devices. You do not need a laptop as well. Like, all you need is a browser, and browser runs on a mobile device. And for mobiles, Salesforce has a dedicated application as well. Like, if you want to particularly do something on the mobile device, you can just
On to the
hello.
please proceed further. Like, what is the future of Salesforce? Yeah. So here I would like to ask few of my participants, like, what they know about Salesforce. If anyone can, like, if one of the admins can put anyone on an unmute state, and if he or she can share, like, what is a thing about a minute, like, what is the thing they know about Salesforce as an industry, it would help me to know where we are, what my audience is like for today, and I can definitely take up from the next minute. So if anyone would like to speak up at this point of time, I would highly like that. Else, if there is no one willing to talk or is aware of Salesforce as an industry, definitely I am there to let you know. Anyone who has any idea about this? Okay, so I guess as I was already talking, and this deck also talks about the same, like, there is no place, there is no industry where Salesforce has not made its mark. Even in entertainment sectors, Salesforce has made its mark. Okay. For example, Netflix is an entertainment thing for us, right? They use Salesforce as their customer relationship management systems. Of course, there are other applications they use as well, but Salesforce does their data handling with customer base. And as I was mentioning, service, Vodafone. For example, there are missing mentions like healthcare. Allergan, if you are aware of the company like Allergan has a huge customer base that is totally maintained out of Salesforce. So there is no sector that Salesforce has not penetrated into. And all these integrations, like, you see the small logo M in this integration, that is a MuleSoft integration. MuleSoft is another company that Salesforce has acquired, who basically made these integrations with other systems seamless. What is an integration? I hope you all are aware what is an integration. Integration is a process by which data flows from one system to another system, two external systems, because data flows seamlessly through those systems. So that is why integration is used, and MuleSoft has been acquired by Salesforce so that companies can do this for free. Like if you have a MuleSoft license, you do not need to spend too much time building your integrations. It's not an easy thing. Like a data from one system would flow into a different system because there are a lot of security protocols. Because with the acquisition of MuleSoft, this also happens pretty easily. And there is no other sector that Salesforce has not trying to penetrate. Salesforce has particular insurance agencies, particular insurance specific needs that Salesforce is penetrating. One of the largest American banks, PNC, was getting migrated to Salesforce. It's one of my personal experiences when I'm talking. So any kind of business, Salesforce is making it smart. And you have to be open to learn different clouds, because if you go into a customer, like if you walk into a store like Domino's or a KFC, you see people who are doing something in some way. So Salesforce has something similar that is called CPQ, is a very, very niche and different kind of a tool, but it's also under the Salesforce umbrella. It's a different cloud license, it's a different model, but that's something similar that we use. I think that Domino's or KFC is a Salesforce tool, but there are other companies who use that. Like you just choose two products and you get all the discounting, all the offers of the day, everything just like comes up to your screen, where the end user, like the person behind the counter, can offer a multiple set of things for that particular moment, for that particular day. And what can go with a thing, what cannot go with a thing. For example, you cannot sell an iPhone charger separately or things like that. Whatever be it, all those things can be configured by the click of a button. And there, me and you come into the picture. As a senior developer, as a senior administrator, we would be doing these things because the system does not know that I cannot sell an iPhone charger without some other specs or things like that. So the system has to be made known. And this is our part. For we work for the business, right? So it's a very open market. And as a very statement I was said, like there is a very high for Salesforce resources, and the gap is yet to be met. I assume that this will not be met very rapidly. This 4 to 5 years is a very good time to transition into Salesforce, because then people will know that Salesforce is the thing, and then like everybody will have some knowledge about Salesforce. Then the market will try to normalize itself. Like there will not be so much high demand for Salesforce. Maybe after 6-7 years, we have to try for some new learning thing. And telling from my very own personal experience, having worked with a lot of senior people into this industry, like it has been observed that any application like this stands for about a time of 12 to 18 years. Now, Salesforce is already into that time. Salesforce is not like Salesforce has not come to the market 2 years back. It has come around in the years of early 2000s. Okay. And now
Why is it
Salesforce
that?
has become such a big word that people are trying to come into this domain. And if something has stood the test of time and now it's such a big thing, then surely it's not something that will follow history. Historically, a product or a thing has not been more than 18 years. You talk some of the greatest products like Siebel and everything, they had a great run and now nobody works on those things. So I was discussing with some of the MVPs the other day, like will this same thing happen with Salesforce? They all have the same assumption or opinion that no, that is not going to happen with Salesforce, because Salesforce is very active. Salesforce is competing with its competitors in such a large scale that they are not allowing even large giants to come up to them. For example, Microsoft Dynamics 365. Microsoft Dynamics 365, that is their CRM tool, does not even come close to Salesforce. So they're definitely trying to catch up. But that brings me to another level of discussion. Like if you join Henry Harvin, if you are into this course of learning Salesforce with me, you become aware of the CRM thing. If you have an experience of this CRM and Salesforce CRM particularly, you would be able to come to its competitive products as well, because they are basically copying down Salesforce and trying to be number one. It's like a search engine. If you try to say you use Google, some people will say, no, I use Mozilla. But it's in the end, it's kind of the same thing. Someone is number one, so it's better to be with the number one. But if someday number two tries to overtake number one, we can definitely jump in there. So as that way also, this CRM course as a foundation to Salesforce is also very, very helpful for everyone. If we can move to the next slide, I can elaborate further. Can we jump onto the next slide? Or is there any questions? Shall we take any questions in the middle? Or are we good? Like Khalid, Shivam, anything you would like to highlight from anyone? Do I need to address any questions?
Say, what is the difference between the normal CRM and the Salesforce CRM? Because the many number of companies also use the many number of CRMs.
See, companies use CRMs based on their particular requirement. For Salesforce, as I was mentioning on the very first session, that is the $75 per user per month. So if your business is not that large, you may not choose Salesforce as your CRM tool. And Salesforce is aware of that. There are other CRM tools like Zoho, which comes as less costly as $25 per user per month. So 1/3 pricing. But as I was mentioning, the largest of companies has Salesforce as their CRM databases. So there are obvious competing products. They are competing with Salesforce. Salesforce makes a seamless transitions. The integrations that we have with Salesforce, the specific features, like it's a complete 360-degree view of the CRM application. If you talk traditionally, CRM is like a kind of a large database model. And people were largely doing this with paper notes and Excel, right? Then came other tools. Then the 𝐸𝐵𝐿. 𝐸𝐵𝐿 was a CRM software which was huge hit. But Salesforce in that model became the pioneer of using SaaS as a service, like software as a service. The first company that did this was Gmail. You did not have to do anything. All you required was an internet connection and sign up somewhere, and you had an existing Gmail account. Salesforce did this in the software level. You do not have to install anything. You come up with your credentials, give some data, and use that again. And you have a software that is hosted in the cloud. So being the first pioneer to do this has a huge, huge market space. They control the Force.com infrastructure. They have their own coding language, which runs totally on the cloud. Have you ever seen before something that runs totally on the cloud without any compiler, without any installer? You can write codes on the cloud, compiles on the cloud, and executes on the cloud.
Okay, I understand this is a totally cloud-based application, sir. And sir, I can ask what is language as a I read some things as a Apex. So what is the syntax same as a Java and Node.js, React.js, same other different this coding Apex?
Yeah, very good question. Like you know what is Apex? Apex is based out of the model of Java. Like Java is an object-oriented language. Object-oriented. But as I was saying, that Apex is hosted on the cloud. So it has its own set of rules and criteria. For example, if you are running a software in your own system, if something goes wrong, only you and your company go out of business for about a few weeks or a few days until unless you fix it. But Salesforce has a multi-tenant architecture. We all are using the same cloud architecture, and based on various other filters, there is a segregation of data. Like I am a customer of Salesforce, you are a customer of Salesforce, but we cannot see each other's data because that has been taken care of by Salesforce monitor, Salesforce databases. The data are unique, but in the end, the Apex that we run on some very, very core architecture that is built at their grassroots level. So we have to take considerations while we write our code so that our code does not break and it does not break the entire cloud. So yes, answering your question, Salesforce does have an Apex coding language that is an object-based language, quite similar, follows all the abstract concepts of Java, but it has its own rules. It has its own governance limits. It has its own restrictions. For example, it is not a recommended practice to use multiple nested loops inside Apex, but you can do that inside Java. Also inside Java, it will slow down your performance, but it's a highly no kind of a bad practice. If you are aware with Java, then becoming a Salesforce developer, as this slide talks about, like major roles offered: Salesforce developer, Salesforce administrator. Like Salesforce developer mostly focuses on Java. Currently, there are other UI sort of things that Salesforce has come up with, which is not a part of this course, but as I am exploring things into, I am giving you a more broader picture. With Salesforce, and you can use native JavaScripts to build your own UI. Now, talking about UI, why I am saying this? When Salesforce traditionally came into the market, it had its own conventional UI. If you have ever opened a Salesforce instance, you will know it's kind of a whitish, bluish. Two environments are there: Salesforce Classic and Salesforce Environment. But now Salesforce has a concept called LWC. Previously, they had a thing called Aura, Lightning Aura components. And now they have used native JavaScript and web standards to come up with LWC, which basically opens up the world for JavaScript developers and web developers to switch into Salesforce development. So yes, if you are good at Java, then you can learn Apex and become a Salesforce developer. If you are good with JavaScript and web standards, you can learn the platforms that Salesforce offers and become a Salesforce UI developer. And if you are totally new, you should start with the fundamentals like Salesforce Administrator and Salesforce Consultant, and then move on to Salesforce development. Now, administration.
And
Administration is very, very generic in a sense. Like all the cloud models that I was talking, it's very generic to all of them, like user management. Like if you can go into the next slides, those next slides talk about those particular things. So you will see the next slides that we discuss upon is very generic in nature, and it will happen across all clouds, right? So if you can go into the next slide, I can talk a little more about it.
Excuse me. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, please proceed ahead. Let's discuss the concepts
Okay.
on a very, very high level. Okay. So as you can see, Salesforce Fundamentals, then there is a thing we will discuss about validation and workflow rules. Now, what is a validation? A validation is something that will come to you when you are basically being asked not to do something. Okay. For example, one of your end users, you are a Salesforce developer. You will not sit in front of your Salesforce system and do data entry or kind of things. For that, there is another skill set, there is another job market that does that. We will be developers or admins. Okay. So people who are in front of the system and they're trying to do some data operations inside the Salesforce system. So a simple validation, like you cannot enter a phone number which does not start with 9, or you cannot enter a phone number which is not of 10 characters. Salesforce is capable enough to think of their own logic, and they have already come up with things like this. But you can fine tune it. You can ensure that, okay, I am not going to enter any particular character into a domain which does not belong to India. If my customer is not registered from country India, then I am not going to accept an extension code of 91 and things like that. And there can be a very, very wide concept of validations. We will discuss that in our course. Then it's workflow rules. Workflow rules are those things which takes automation into consideration, right? Like as I was mentioning, today is your birthday, and the company has a policy of sending 15% coupon offers on any purchase a candidate makes on their birthday. So how will the system know whom to send these automations? All those things will be covered inside our course. Like all the system knows is I have my birthday today. So, and based on that, I needs to be send out mails. And when I talk about I, it's not I can be as large as 100,000 contacts. So that's a very, very small configuration, but that can be a very, very high impact to the business. So that's the workflow rules. And there are many aspects and criteria of workflow rules as well. Field types and Salesforce objects. These are very, very core things. Like everything inside Salesforce can be categorized into objects. Conventionally talking, if you see an Excel sheet, things were broken down into rows and columns. Here, Salesforce has objects, and objects had fields and values. So if you are synonymous to Excel, you can think of the columns as fields and the rows as values. And object is something a very different kind of a sheet. Like every sheet has its own name, every object has its own name with own columns and rows. So kind of that. And field types, yes, very difficult to categorize field types in an Excel sheet or in any other CRM. But Salesforce has about 30 or 25 field types, be it an email field type, be it an encrypted field type, be it a currency field type, be it an lookup, be it a master detail relationships. And these are very important concepts, like those two things that I just mentioned, lookup and master detail, which we will also cover into our course. Then one of the greatest things that is of great importance and controls a lot of data visibility, that is our Salesforce user profiles. For example, we all are using the same Salesforce instance. Suppose you are working for Netflix and you are a Netflix Salesforce developer. And there is someone inside Netflix who is a Netflix sales manager. Okay. So both people do not have the same authority to use Salesforce at that level. So these user profiles, these user licenses has to be configured very, very cautiously so that you do not open up more accesses. A little bit less access can be possible so that you can always open up for that particular person. But suppose you do not need to say who is the highest customer of Netflix, because those are very confidential data. So those things has to be configured, and all those things are done at the user level profile, like who can see which record, who can see which value from a particular record. Taking of an example, like we are suppose admins, Salesforce developers or admins, but our company does not allow everybody to see the salary of person who is inside our company. Of course, if somebody is using Salesforce CRM, then they are using Salesforce CRM to track HR data as well, right? And HR data in some cases will definitely store salary values, but everybody is not authorized to see that. So these sort of configurations also can be done, and is usually done by this user profile management. Then comes App Exchange, a very, very similar thing to a Play Store, where there are applications available for free and applications available for paid download. So if you feel that you need a ready-made application, you can search in the App Exchange. If that fits your criteria, you can download it. Or if you feel that, okay, this functionality is cool, then your developers can build something of their own. So App Exchange is something widely popular. It has about 8,000 apps, free as well as paid currently. So that's also a very particular thing to Salesforce itself. It's available only inside Salesforce. Data management, we will discuss this to a great extent. Like duplicate management is one of those parts. Clean data, like what is good data, what is bad data, how to ensure that you follow a good data practice and everything. What are the validations that we should need to consider? And that is a very important aspect that we cover inside this course. I had already discussed about user interface. Currently, without JavaScript and web standards, there is a user interface that we use, which is also very good, which is also very free. And then we have a little coverage in our course about event handling, which basically uses JavaScript handlers, JavaScript events to communicate directly with the web and make those functionalities also possible, which is not previously given by Salesforce. Okay, so those things we will also cover into this course. So if you can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a user management process in details. What are the things that we as a user profile manager would basically be doing? Configure their logins, their IP addresses, their login hours, the management settings, what all provisions or what all openness the user has when it comes to like configuring what they can see inside the system.
Sir, I
Then
have a question.
licenses. One of the major things or the cost model that people or company pay to Salesforce. See, Netflix is using Salesforce. So basically Netflix has to pay per month some amount to Salesforce. And what exact amount they pay has to be configured by the number of licenses they are using of Salesforce. And every licenses comes with different sort of remunerations. For example, there are chapter licenses which comes for free, and there are very, very limited functionalities. And then there are Salesforce licenses and Salesforce platform licenses, which are costly. So which user to give which licenses and how licenses cover your data access and visibility, that we will also discuss. Then there's a thing called delegated admins, where me as an admin can give temporary permission to some other user, maybe a normal business user as an admin. And what all permissions can we give? Can we give all permissions of an admin? Like he or she suddenly can do whatever she feels like, or some particular things can only be given, that we will also discuss. So if you move on to the next slide. Okay, so inside Salesforce, we have the concept of categorization of things into apps. For example, you can build something that may be very, very particular to your own requirement. For example, you are trying to build an HR kind of a software. In an HR kind of a software, you do not need to deal with incidents or cases. You do not need to do with opportunities or sales data. You are building particular for an HR system, right? You are suppose working in tandem with something like a Naukri.com or some kind of a thing. You are building a business for them. So their particular solution needs a particular requirement to be met. So you design the requirement and you standardize this into an app. And the cool thing is, once you have created this app, you can actually hoist it to the app exchange for free, or you can charge money, and then people can just take it. Like if there's some other person who want to build some similar kind of an tracking system, they can just download the application for free, or if you have made it available for some sort of money, then they can use it. And it's actually possible. We search a lot of things that is readily available in the app exchange, and we can try to fit it inside our own business. So, and people are doing that. There are Salesforce jobs as well, where you do not have to do core Salesforce understanding. If you are good at developing things, you develop applications and you put it into the app exchange. There are many companies who does follow this system. Like there are Salesforce app developers. They predominantly create applications and put into the app exchange. So yes, standard apps come out of the box when you buy Salesforce licenses, when you pay Salesforce some amount of money for your user management. Then some apps come like sales, service. These are apps like those industries. And inside that, there are standard objects. It can be cases, leads, accounts, opportunity. We will discuss this in a much detail. What are standard objects? What are the facilities? Why use standard objects when you can create custom ones? And why Salesforce recommends that if you have a standard solution to something, always go with the standard solution. We will discuss this greatly in our sessions. So yes, jumping on to the next slide. This is very particular to accounts, business accounts and person accounts. So this is a pretty self-explanatory thing, but this can be of great variety. This can make a good difference in the day-to-day business transactions, roll-ups, reporting. Like if we have enabled person accounts as well as business accounts. So in Salesforce, the standard account is a business account. we do not have the concept of person accounts. But currently, we are doing business with specific people as well, right? Like even you can be a business. It's not your company who is doing the business, right? For example, there are people who are own their own businesses. So with keeping that in mind, Salesforce has enabled two kinds of an accounts. One is business account, one is a person account. Not every business uses person account because person account doesn't come out of the box. You have to raise to Salesforce support asking to enable person account. And once person account is enabled, you cannot disable it. So businesses has to make this choice consciously if they want person accounts to be enabled. And and it is not even required in most cases, and it does not involve any other sort of a pricing or anything. It's totally the need of the business, and just reaching out to Salesforce support will actually enable that. But it cannot be disabled. If needed to be disabled, then you have to pay Salesforce some money, because Salesforce has to do a lot of reworking to disable it again. So this is a particular account kind of a concept where we talk about account management. We will discuss more about this. Jumping on to the next slide. Yeah, as I mentioned, standard objects in Salesforce. There are various other standard objects as well, apart from lead, account, opportunity. Reports is not a standard object. Actually, reports is something that we use for our analytics and dashboards. Assets, there are standard objects like campaigns, campaign members, orders, cases. So it covers a great aspect where we will discuss a lot about standard objects and what all we can easily achieve by standard objects. Like why we have to use leads and not create anything from our own, because the lead has a lot more to offer than if we try to create on our own, right? So you can use lead for anything. If you have to use a conversion, like leads is not your business, right? Leads are probable businesses. So if you have to ensure that you want to have a model like that, where you want to segregate your original business and your probable business, then you use leads. If your business does not follow into that hierarchy, we can use something more different. So again, we will talk about the use cases and the limitations, like when you cannot do something by this, and we will discuss about these concepts as well, and many other standard objects as well. So if you go to the next slide, we will see. Okay, so button, there are standard buttons, there are custom buttons. For example, standard buttons are already given. If you want to take a print of a record, edit a record, clone a record, these are all standard functionalities that comes as a button. But what if you want to click a button and you want to go into a Google search with one click? For example, there is an account. There is a particular account name, some XYZ corporation, and you are not sure about its entire business or function. So there is a button, for example, take me to Wikipedia page. You click that button and it takes you to the company's Wikipedia page. This sort of things are not standard. You have to build this sort of things. Okay. So we will discuss about those functionalities as well, like you create something behind which some operation happens and these things are executed. So this is also something that is covered in our course. And it's very interesting. Like you click of a button and it goes to a Google search engine. For example, in one of our projects, the business end users were basically people who were using information about cars. But not every business person is so much aware of cars. So whenever something or query used to come, they used to manually query for the car. So we designed the information like where there are some specific models, like the car model name, the car engine types and everything. We combined those information from our car record, and we just used to click on a button. The information used to take those values and send it to a Google normal search engine, where Google would come up with the best possible result, and it would be a different browser who will be showing all the information. So that made their life very easy. A very small solution, but very, very efficient one. So we will discuss those things as well. Yeah, please jump on to the next slide. Okay, this is a little technical. I cannot show you this without an instance. You are not aware of setup and what all these things are. But yes, this is basically how the skeleton of the button is built. And definitely building the button is a very easy thing. But what the button will do, that requires some logic and experience. So those logics and experience, like how I mentioned, like how it will take up information from the lead page, from the record page, and go over to Google and search, we will discuss it in our course. So I'm skipping this slide because this is more of a technical thing. And let's jump on to the next slide. This is another very important thing. This is another concept that comes into user management, role hierarchy structure. For example, suppose Khalid is my manager and I am able to, for example, I am the owner of that record. Now, for you, these concepts are very vague. What is an owner? I have some records. So what I am talking might be very confusing to you. But once you join this course, you will be aware of all these terminologies, right? So going forward, I say Khalid is my manager and he can see whatever data I have access to. Now, how is that possible, right? For example, Khalid, I have this CEO, this VP services, VP sales, as you can see, may not match with the existing or the role hierarchy of an exact business. For example, this is a generic slide and these are names. But for example, there is a concept of roles in Salesforce where it opens up accesses to data based on the structure. For example, if my role is developer 1, then developer 2 can see my data, but I cannot see developer 2's data as of this slide. And how we are going to configure this role hierarchy is very important. And developer 1's data can be seen by everyone, to project manager, to VP services, but there are segregations. How to do that, we will discuss on our course. Moving on to the next slide. Change set, a very advanced concept. Basically, why this is important, I will tell you. Because we do not do changes directly into the production environment, directly into the business. So we do things on the lower environment, smaller environments, and don't push those changes higher up to the production environment. Basically, any business has about 4 environments: developer, SIT, UAT, and production. So then all these changes are migrated from one environment to the another by these change sets. We will discuss change sets mostly, and the course concept will be change set, and we will talk of other things as well. For there are other 𝐶oPADO and other things that have come into the market. I will cover a few discussions about those as well. These are basically used for deployments. So we will discuss that as well. Next. Yes, as I mentioned, outbound, inbound, and what would be the particular requirement. These will be done in change sets itself. Jumping on to the next slide. User interfaces. I had already talked a little bit about this, how it can be standard, how it can be customized by JavaScript, by web standards, and by native user management. Like there's a thing called Lightning App Builder, where we greatly configure our record pages, home pages, and the UI part. So yes, that will also be covered. And these are very interesting things, how one small changes can make big impacts to a lot of data, to a lot of visibility. So this is very interesting. You will like it in our course. Please jump on to the next slide. Again, this talks about sandboxes. And as I mentioned, you see, I said there are 4 types of sandboxes that people usually use. The names may be different. Here it says dev, pro, partial, full. In some companies, it can be dev, SIT, UAT. The core concepts remain the same. So we will discuss not only sandboxes, not only change sets, but a bit about this release management process as well. Though it's a very vast topic in itself, but we will cover this as well. Yes, please jump on. Yes, this is something which is very, very wide. I try to keep this discussion very limited, because when you talk about event-driven programming using JavaScript, it is of the assumption that you know JavaScript, and it is very difficult to assume that anybody knows JavaScript because it's so vast and it's still expanding every day. So there are some things that cannot be done by standard Salesforce activities. There you have to use events, JavaScript events, apexes, and we will touch about those limitations and when you have to use those things as well. Do not expect that I am going to make you a JavaScript expert. That is not possible. That is not the agenda of our discussion. I will try to make you as familiar with Salesforce and when you have to use JavaScript, what is the limitation that Salesforce suggests. For example, you are not aware of Salesforce and you come into this industry today and you are a very good JavaScript developer, I assume, and you start using JavaScript. No, that is not a suggested practice. You have to be aware that when you have to use JavaScript, then only you have to use JavaScript or Apex. So those are the things that I will try to make you enlightened into this course as well. Please jump on to the next slide. Okay, I guess my moderator will guide or can say something more about here. So Khalid and team, if you can take up from here. If there is any Salesforce related activity, I will again jump in. But about Henry Harvin, I guess you people are much more aware. So please take up from here and the rest of the slides, and I can jump in again. I'm on the call.
Sir, I can ask a question.
In case so when if anybody has more Salesforce related questions, I am okay.
Sir, when
I cannot see chats here. Let me see if there are any chats or anything.
Then use the Salesforce paid version or
Okay.
free version also Salesforce provide for training and learning.
I have a question from Ashish saying Salesforce will replace the SAP. No, actually, Ashish. Salesforce is a CRM software. SAP is an ERP software. Both have very different requirements to be met in the industry. So no, ERP will exist independently. Salesforce will exist independently. And those are very different sort of things. So my answer is no. But obviously, if you are new to this industry and want to make a career, then Salesforce has better prospects than SAP because Salesforce is growing and SAP has outgrown itself. So yes, and the other question is, who can do Salesforce? Anybody can do Salesforce. If you have a technical background and if you want to have a career into this IT industry, it would be very suggestible for you. If you have from a non-technical background and want to move into it, then it's a little harder because of how the structure is in India, how jobs are given in an Indian perspective. But anybody can do Salesforce. And my course, anybody can do Salesforce, but it's not a very IT code driven one. It's a very fundamental Salesforce course. You need to understand of Salesforce as an application. If you are not good with Java, if you are not good with Apex, it's not a problem. The course talks about core Salesforce, like what all you can do just by aware of Salesforce. So yes, answering your question, anybody can do Salesforce. I have another question. Salesforce giving for license practice as free or paid version and can be as joint course, then can be best practice on free version on cloud. I guess you are mentioning that we can practice Salesforce for free. Yes, Salesforce has a system. Salesforce are basically giving their developer editions for free. And that's not to like experiment with. That's what they want people to be Salesforce ready because they want the market to be a Salesforce driven market. So that's why Salesforce developer editions are free. Those editions are not client editions. Those are good for learning purposes. They do have restrictions like those environments do not have change sets, do not have the concept of release management, because they are only for learning purposes. Basically, we use those instances to make the concepts clear. And of course, there are multiple possibilities. The environment is so much like learning can be endless. But yes, Salesforce, answering your question, Salesforce do provide free user licenses. You cannot do major business related activities, but as a start, you can obviously sign up for those licenses and you can pick from there. Let me see if I have any other questions in the chat. I guess we can also do developer version for writing code of Apex and other apps development, etc. Yes, those developer instances come with developer consoles where we can write Apex. That is allowed by Salesforce and they do not charge any money. Basically, Salesforce encourages people to learn Salesforce before they actually do developments for clients. So those editions are called Salesforce trial editions. Those are not sandbox editions. Those are production instances, but those are developer editions. So yes, you can sign up today and you can begin your journey. Okay. Yeah. I hope all the questions are answered. Anything from now on? I guess this question will be better handled by my team of experts here, Khalid and team. This is not exactly to me. So Khalid or team, if you can jump on from here, like Henry Harvin also provides paid version or free version for practice. And yeah, that's from my side as a Salesforce instructor, come practitioner in the market. I have tried to elaborate you on the course curriculum as much as possible. If in case you can reach out to the entire team at Henry Harvin and we can pick up from here. So Khalid and team, if you have anything from me or from everyone, you can jump in or you can allow me to close the session from my end. And please, if anybody has to say something, a kind of a feedback, we all would be very generous to listen to that so that we can do it much better and further going on. So thank you, everyone. I guess, Chauhan, you're trying to say something. You are on unmute, but your voice is not coming. And
Thank you, sir.
Khalid, just let us know if everything is done so that I can drop off and as well as my participants.
Yes,
and maybe
yes,
we
yes,
can try connecting later if that's required. Okay. I hope
Yes, sir.
to see you all
It
in
was
my
a great session,
sessions.
sir. Yeah.
And you can definitely reach out to my team here at Henry Harvin. Thank you, participants. Thank you, Khalid.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Souvik.
the entire people who have taken the time to connect today on a Saturday evening.
Sure,
I
sure.
wish all of
Thanks
you
a
a
lot.
very good weekend. Thank you. I am dropping off.
Sure, sir. Thanks.